I don't usually like to repeat myself by looking at the same artist on consecutive Fridays, but I've been on a bit of an X jag lately. I've been really enjoying exploring, in particular, their first 4 records, and I thought, why not look at another X track right away? And anyway, the track I've chosen to look at today, The Have-Nots, shows a very different side of X, I think, and it's a very country-influenced kind of sound. In the comments underneath last week's video, this one seemed to come up quite a lot, and there seems to be a general consensus that this contains some of Billy Zoom's finest guitar work. And I can't really disagree with that. There's some fantastic playing throughout this song. I want the main focus of this video to be the guitar solo, which is just a superb piece of work, I think. But I'm also going to be showing you how to play the main riff, and I'll take you through the basic chords for the rest of the track as well. So I should say that I just figured out this solo yesterday, so I'm not promising it's going to be flawless, but I hope I do it some kind of justice. I'm going to begin by just playing through the guitar solo, then we'll get to the teaching stuff. What a fabulous solo that is, and as you can hear, it showcases the more country side of Billy Zoom and the more technical side of his playing, I think. And it's not an easy solo to play, but I'm going to try and break it down into small chunks and make it as manageable as possible. Of course, you don't need to learn the whole solo. You might just want to take 1 or 2 licks and learn those. And as usual, I'm going to be doing a bit of an analysis of the solo in terms of the note choice and scales, how it relates to the chords, and that way you're going to really understand what is going on, and you're going to be able to use similar concepts in music and solos of your own. Let's get started then. As I said, the main focus is going to be on that guitar solo, but I'm going to begin by looking at the main riff, and I'm also just going to whiz through the basic chords to the rest of the track. I'm going to start by showing you the main riff, which is actually pretty straightforward to play. And I'm going to say this song is in the key of G, although actually it's quite a slippery song as far as key goes. We've got quite an unusual selection of chords, lots of different sections, some modulations, mixing of chords from major and minor keys. So let's not worry too much about that stuff, shall we, and just get on with learning the riff. Now it goes like this. As you can see, I'm starting from a G chord or a G power chord here. I've just got a G and a D, just going between those 2 notes. Then the harmony's moving to an E, and I'm just playing some single notes based on an E kind of a sound. I've got the low E string and then a hammer on from A to B, and then catching the open D string and just repeating that. And then we're moving to a B power chord and just picking out the notes of that chord individually. So G5, single notes in E, and then B. Now I'm just briefly going to whiz through some of the chords to the rest of the song, and actually the song is pretty complex in terms of the arrangement, and there's lots of chords flying around, lots of different sections and linking passages, so I'll try and make some sense of that. I'm actually not quite sure what to call some of these sections, but after you've got the verse, which is played over the main riff, there's, I guess you call it a chorus or some kind of bridge section, and that's just going between an A and an E. So I'm kind of playing power chords and then adding in that extra note, kind of Chuck Berry style. And we're just repeating that another couple of times before we return to the main riff again. And then we've got that A to E section repeated, and the second time you hear it, there's some extra guitar overdubs, some nice little rockabilly style fills going on. So I'm not going to play those exactly because I haven't learned them exactly, but it's something like this. You've got the so I've got some fills over the E chord based on the kind of E minor pentatonic. So those kind of ideas. Listen closely to the record and you could pick out a few of those yourself, I'm sure. Then we've got just a couple of bars on G, just as a kind of linking section, and Billy Zoom is playing this kind of country bending stuff, which we're going to come on to when we look at the solo in some detail, but it's just holding down a D and a G and then bending on the G string and A up to a B. And then we go round the A to E bridge section one more time. There's another couple of bars of G. And then we're on into another section. And again, I'm not exactly sure what to call it. Is it another bridge? Is it a chorus? It doesn't particularly matter, I don't think. And the basic chords are just D, E, and C. So mostly just hearing power chords there. And over that C chord, you can once again hear Billy Zoom playing some of these lovely fills, and it's this kind of thing. And you can actually play the rhythm and the lead, mix the two things together quite easily. I think on the recording, the lead parts are probably overdubs, but if you play them together, it will sound a bit like this. So I'm going to come on to this specific lick when we talk about the solo, because it crops up quite a lot in the actual solo. But we've just got one more section before we hit the solo, and it's just a linking section, building up the energy until we hit the solo, and that's really just going from A up to D and then up to E. And then we're leading into the solo with the opening lick. On into the solo then, and I'm going to try and describe this in a moderate amount of detail. Not going to describe every single note or we'd be here far too long, but I will write it all out in Music and Tab, and that will be up on my Patreon page for those of you who find that kind of thing helpful. We're leading into the solo with this great lick. And it's a kind of E major pentatonic lick. I think we're playing over an E chord here. You've got your E major pentatonic scale up here at the 9th fret. And we've got a few single notes. And then we're into the first of these country bending licks, and there's a lot of this kind of thing going on in this solo. So we're bending an F sharp up to a G sharp. This is on the 3rd string at the 11th fret. And then we're holding down with the little finger the 12th fret on the top 2 strings. So you're bending, holding the bend, and then playing the top 2 strings, and then releasing the bend. It helps, I think, if you're using a bit of hybrid picking here, some pick and fingers. So I tend to play the bent note with my pick, and then with my ring finger and middle finger, I'm playing the top 2 strings. So. And the theory behind this lick, basically we're just hitting chord tones. Remember, we're playing over an E chord and we're going for this kind of sound. So you've got a G sharp, B and an E, which is the 3rd, the 5th and the root of an E chord. And we're hitting that G sharp by bending an F sharp up to a G sharp. So it's the 2nd bending up to the 3rd, and you're holding down the other chord tones with your little finger. So. Then we're on into the solo proper, and I think it's important to understand the chords that we're playing over, and then you can see how the notes that Billy Zoom chooses really fit those chords perfectly. And he's playing over the main riff of the song, which, if you remember, is G to E to B. And what he mostly seems to be doing, I've no idea exactly what he's thinking when he takes a solo, but he seems to be hitting the chord tones from those chords as they go by, which is what makes it such a great and melodic solo. And in actual fact, these chords are quite unusual, G, E and B, to solo over. There's not really a one-size-fits-all scale. I suppose you could probably get away with playing the B minor pentatonic scale throughout. But actually the best approach, I think, is just to think about the chord tones and the notes in those chords as they go by. So the first phrase you hear goes like this. And straight away we're into chord tones. So we've got a G major triad here. You add in your little finger and you've got a G sus4. So that's played over the G and then over E. And again, it's kind of chord tones. We've got it's an E and an A dropping down to an E and a G sharp. So it's like a kind of an E sus4 to E. And then just a few single notes. And then over the B, we've got another one of these country licks. And it's basically the same idea as this lick we played over the E chord, but we're moving it down to the 4th fret, and that fits over a B major chord. So you've got this lick. So once again, bending into the third of the chord. Coming out of the bend, some major pentatonic kind of notes, and then another very similar bending lick. For the next little phrase, we're back to the G chord, and Billy Zoom is playing around with the chord tones, around this G major triad shape, I think. So think D major, move it up to the 7th fret. That gives you the G major chord tones, and we've got this. And I'm just hearing that A note in there, the 10th fret. And then over the E. So some single notes here, but it's still outlining that kind of E sus to E sound. And then we're to B, and it's a very similar bending lick here. It's just the rhythm is slightly different here, and instead of playing individual notes on the top 2 strings, you're playing them together as a double stop. So for the next phrase, Billy Zoom moves away from this chord tone thing, and he's kind of playing some blues licks here, I think. So it seems to be based on the B minor pentatonic or the B blues scale. So we've got this phrase. So here you could think B minor pentatonic in that little box shape up at the 10th fret. And there's a nice little hammer on there from D to G, D sharp. It's kind of minor to major third sound. And then we're down to position 1 B minor pentatonic, and you hear this idea. So this is blues scale. And once again we've got this bending lick. But this time it's in a minor pentatonic kind of context rather than major pentatonic. And for the last 4 bars of the solo, we're returning to more of this chord tone stuff. And you hear this lick, which is very similar to what we've had before. It's just based on that G major triad shape. We're just sliding into that. Just pulling off from the 4th there, the sus4. And then we're moving to E, and Billy Zoom is playing this. Again, just thinking triads here, so it's coming straight out of the chord shape at the 9th fret, and we've got, and and just embellishing that triad shape. And then for the final lick of the solo, we're back to B, and we've got one more of these country phrases. And that's very, very similar to what we've heard before. So there's obviously a lot going on there, and do take your time with this if you want to learn this whole solo note for note. Or, as I said, you can just pick some of your favourite phrases. There's some great licks in there that you can steal and make your own, I think. So let me put all of that together for you slowly and in time. We've got 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Let me briefly tell you about the gear that I'm using today, and I've not actually researched what Billy Zoom would have used on this particular track. I don't know whether the information is out there or not. It sounds quite like a Gretsch to me on this solo and this recording, but I can't be sure about that. The guitar I'm using today is my Telecaster, and I chose this guitar just because it's the guitar that I'm most comfortable with when playing in that kind of country bending style. And this Telecaster is a 52 reissue from sometime in the 1990s. The amp I'm using today is my Vox AC30, and again that's a reissue AC30. It's one with a kind of quite unusual red finish. I don't see many of those around actually. I'm going into the normal channel of the AC30, and it's a moderately loud volume, probably about 3 or 4. Also using a couple of pedals as well. It's the usual suspects today, just a touch of compression from the MXR Dynacomp and some overdrive from the J Rocket Archer. Let me just give you some quick sounds then. This is the guitar going straight into the AC30 with no pedals engaged. Nice, balanced, basic, clean sound, I think. Then I'll kick on the compressor. You can hear how the sustain is massively increased there. I also think it just adds some extra definition to some of those notes. And then if I turn on the overdrive pedal as well, and you have the final sound. That's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and that's it I think for my X lessons for the time being, though I will almost certainly return to X in the future because there are plenty more great songs that I would love to look at. Music and tab is going to be up on my Patreon page. I've actually transcribed most of this track, so the riffs and some of the verse parts as well, so check that out if you're interested. Also my little solo backing track is going to be up there as well. Thanks a lot for watching. I shall see you next time.